Hello everyone. This video is part of my Docker deployment series in the public cloud. In this video, we will deploy the sample voting application in the Docker cloud. Docker cloud is a hosted service from Docker to manage containers. Compared to the Docker data center, Docker cloud is not an enterprise class deployment scenario. So here Docker Cloud has its own private repository, and if you want we can also use Docker Hub. Docker Cloud previously had its own orchestration engine, networking and stack file format. In the later releases, Docker Cloud has started using Swarm mode, but currently the Swarm mode is available as a beta feature, and it has only limited features available currently. In the regular non-swarm mode, Docker Cloud supported almost all the public cloud providers. In the case of swarm mode, the only integration that is available currently is with AWS. I think there is work actively going on to integrate Azure and Google Container Engine. And also currently only the GUI option is available. There is no Docker Cloud CLI option that is available with swarm mode. So in terms of the prerequisites, we need the Docker Cloud account. We can use the Docker Hub account, works for Docker Cloud. We need to select Swarm mode in the Docker Cloud, and then we need to have the AWS Cloud account. So currently I'm in the Docker Cloud GUI. I'm logged in as my username. So this is the option that selects Swarm mode or not the Swarm mode. So currently I have kept the setting in the Swarm mode. As you see here, Swarm is available as a beta feature. The first step here is like registering the cloud provider. As I mentioned earlier, currently only AWS is available. For that we have to create a role and the policy AWS, and then use the ARN that we get from AWS, and we need to add it to the Docker Cloud. So the links here explains all these steps pretty clearly. So one of the links here, it tells what is the policy that we need to use for the permissions for the IAM role, and this link here walks through exactly the steps that we need to do from the AWS side. So currently I have logged into AWS and I've added the role and the policy as was mentioned in the earlier links. So here this is the role ARN that I have. And if I look at the policy, so this is the policy that we have created. And if I log into Docker Cloud, and if I go to my cloud settings, I see that AWS ARN is registered here. So once we are done with that, we can create our cluster in the AWS Cloud. So for that, I can say click. So we can click on the Swarm beta option here, and then there are two options here: bring your own swarm or create the swarm cluster. With bring your own swarm, we can create a swarm cluster from any location, and we can import that to Docker Cloud, so that there will be one central place to manage. So let's say if you create, so let's give the name of the swarm cluster, and as we see here, only AWS is available, even Azure is grayed out. So now here it gives a bunch of options. So first, let's say I create the region here. So I create the number of swarm managers, the number of worker nodes, which SSH key to use, and then for the swarm manager it gives a properties. I choose the T2 micro, which is the default, the smallest size that's available. Same for the workers. So the critical thing is the number of manager, worker nodes, and the SSH key. This is used if you want to if you need to SSH into the nodes. So after that we can do a create. So what this is going to do is deploy this one master and two worker node cluster into the AWS. Okay, now we can see that the deployment is complete. To access this particular swarm cluster, we can run a container and give the name of the cluster that we created. For example, in this case, we use the Docker Cloud Client container, and voting app is the name of the cluster that we created. So we can copy paste this and access this from any of the nodes where we have Docker installed. So here we need to enter the Docker Cloud credentials, and now we can export this Docker host. So this will allow us to access the Swarm cluster that we have created. So you can see do a Docker node ls. So I did not give enough time for the Swarm cluster to deploy. So now we can see the Docker node ls. So this basically gives the 3 node Swarm cluster, and now we can also check that in the basically we can log into AWS and we can check that there are 3 running instances that have been created, and also we can the way this cluster gets created is using the CloudFormation template. And if you go to the CloudFormation stacks, so this is the voting app cluster that gets created. So here we can see that that it is created successfully. And in so basically this creates a bunch of resources that includes the load balancer, which allows for automatic integration of the services that we create from Swarm cluster to the load balancer in the AWS, and a whole bunch of other services which are like system containers that are running. Actually we can check that here as well, that what are the system containers that are running inside the cluster. So all these are containers that we have not created. These are containers that are spawned as system containers by the CloudFormation template that Docker Cloud creates. So as I mentioned earlier, we can also use a existing stack and we can integrate that to the Docker Cloud. So I have given the steps here. So in this case, let's say for this example, I created a Swarm cluster in the Azure, and there is a Docker Cloud registration container. We need to execute this command, which is the container in the Swarm master of the Azure cluster, and then that would allow that particular cluster to get registered into the Docker Cloud, and then we can manage this from one place. Okay, now that we have the cluster set up and working fine, we can try to deploy our application. So we can use usual Docker stack deploy, and this is going to create all the services. And since we are using the Swarm mode, we can use the Compose version 3 as it is. So we can check the status of the stack with this. So here we can see all the services running. To access this particular cluster, we can access them from the load balancer that is created in the AWS. To do that, we can go to the load balancers, and we should be able to see the services already registered with the load balancer. So here we can check what are the instances. These are the 3 instances that are available, and these 3 instances are in service. So now we can use this particular DNS name, and we can access the port 5000 and 5001 for the basically the vote service as well as the result service. Now that we have deployed the service successfully, to delete the cluster, so this seems to be a little painful. It's not yet integrated properly here. So when you try to delete this cluster, it does give a warning that removing the Swarm from the Docker Cloud will not actually terminate the Swarm, but it does not tell us how to actually terminate it. So one problem that I faced is after if I terminate it here, and if you directly delete the instances, it is going to you're going to land up into a weird state actually. So that the right way, at least I found it to be working, is we can remove this from here. In addition to that, we can go to the AWS CloudFormation template, and we can go to the stacks, and here we can delete the stack. So this pretty much would delete all the resources that we have created. So for more details on the Docker Cloud documentation, you can refer here. So hopefully the Swarm mode integration of Docker Cloud will be completed pretty soon, and we'll have all the features of the Swarm available in Docker Cloud in the Swarm mode also, as on parity with what we had earlier available with Swarm. Thanks for watching.